Historical periods in Chicano history. The information for this presentation is taken from Britannica Online. Today's Mexican Americans trace their history to a development that began more than 4 centuries ago, when Spain conquered Mexico and made it a colony. Before that, the territory was inhabited exclusively by American Indians. Mexican Americans are, therefore, the second oldest component of American society. Some Mexican Americans are immigrants or descendants of immigrants, while others come from families that were living in the Southwest before it became part of the United States. That led to the saying among such Mexican Americans that we didn't cross the border crossed us. Let's take a look at the first era, 1520 to 1809. This period covers the Spanish conquest until the beginning of the revolt against Spain. It was during those nearly 300 years that the synthesis of Spanish and American Indian cultures took place. Early in that period, the southwest of what is now the United States was added to Mexico. The Spanish administration founded one of the oldest cities in North America, Santa Fe, which is now in New Mexico, in 1610. The last region to be colonized was California. The second era is from 1810 to 1848. During the second era, from 1810 to 1848, the Southwest was part of an independent Mexico. The region developed slowly, largely because of the distance between it and the capital of Mexico City. Then, in 1846 to 48, the Mexican-American War resulted in the United States acquiring the Southwest, including most of what are now New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, California, Texas, and western Colorado. This was The war was ended by the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, in which the United States promised to protect the rights of Mexicans in the newly won territories. Unfortunately, the United States did not honor most of the treaty's provisions. Huge tracts of land belonging to Mexicans were taken from them by the most dubious legal means or by outright theft. Violence was perpetual against them, and there was a great deal of economic exploitation. Era 3, 1849 to 1910. The period from 1849 to 1910 was an era of Anglo-American assimilation of the new territory. The Mexican Americans of the Southwest were gradually overwhelmed in numbers by Anglo newcomers from the East. The fourth era, 1910 to 1939. About 1910, the next era began with the start of a massive emigration from Mexico itself. Large numbers of Mexicans came to the United States to escape the Mexican Revolution from 1910 to 1920, or seek economic opportunity. Immigration from Mexico, both legal and illegal, has continued to the present. During the early decades of the arrival of Mexicans in the United States was part of a much greater migratory trend that included many immigrants from Europe and Asia as well. The Mexican immigration continued steadily until the Great Depression of the 1930s. Then, with the collapse of the U.S. economy, many immigrants returned to Mexico. Many others were sent back by the United States government. During the period from 1910 to 1939, Mexican Americans remained largely unassimilated, rural, and poor. They were for the most part a forgotten American amid the crisis of the Great Depression and World War II, which took place from 1939 to 1945. The Fifth Era, 1940 to the present. The current period began in 1940. In the decades since 1940, and especially since 1960, Mexican Americans have come together to assert their civil rights as a people who deserve social, economic, and political equality. During that period, the way of life of the Mexican American population shifted from basically rural to mostly urban. As a city-dwelling minority, many Mexican Americans found themselves sharing the problems of others in urban society, such as a lack of jobs and affordable housing. Many U.S. cities are home to large populations of Mexican Americans. California's Los Angeles, Long Beach area has more Mexican Americans than any other metropolitan area in the United States. There are also sizable Mexican American communities in Riverside, San Bernardino, California, Houston, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Dallas, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, San Antonio, Texas, and San Diego, California.